Everyone doing great? You know, it's not an IIOC event unless we have some technical issues, so now it's officially an IIOC event, so our apologies about the technical issues. I want to welcome you guys all here to the Islamic Institute of Orange County. For some of you, this is your first time. For others, you guys are returners, so welcome to all. Really happy everyone is here. As you know, today is our Ramadan 101, everything you need to know about Ramadan, the month of fasting, and also about Zakah. Zakat 101, we're going to try to squeeze that in there as well. I know we took about 17 minutes off the clock, so we're going to try to do our best. As you know, Isha, the number 5 prayer, is going to be at 9:15. So what we're going to try to do our best, and of course Sheikh Mustafa will maneuver through this. We're going to go till about 9 p.m.-ish for the Ramadan 101 and possibly Zakah. And then we'll open it up with some questions. And then 9:15, of course, we have to break for prayer. But then we're going to come back for those of you, if you're interested, because we're going to have tons of questions, I'm sure. We can come back and then we have a session with Sheikh Mustafa. He's kindly said that he would stay back and answer as much as he can and stay with us past his, normal time, so which we really appreciate. I'm not going to say the bedtime, but I do appreciate that. So please keep that in mind, brothers and sisters. If you have a question, I would ask you to please refrain from asking the question till the end. So I would text it to myself, I would write it, make a note, something, so you guys don't forget, inshallah, God willing. Is that okay with everyone? Again, welcome to IOC, appreciate it. So without further ado, our religious director here as well, Sheikh Mustafa Umar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be with you all. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. So what we're going to try to cover today is we're going to try to cover the main things that people need to know about the month of Ramadan, which is about a week away, about fasting during Ramadan in particular, and about Zakah, or the institution of charity that's specifically known as Zakah. So we're going to try to cover it from a perspective, because I know there's a lot of people, I was told a lot of people here today, this is going to be their first time fasting. There are a lot of people online, this is also their first Ramadan. So I'm going to try to make it as basic as possible, but then the questions can be very detailed as you want to ask, okay? So is that all right with everyone? All right, let's get started then. So first of all, the way in which I'm going to present this information. In Islam, all the fundamental principles are usually black and white in the sense that they're clear-cut. There's not, there's not really any questions about it. So for example, in Ramadan, Muslims are supposed to fast in the month of Ramadan. There's no two opinions about this. There's no like a different sect or different group or some other scholar that's going to say anything different. Fasting begins at dawn and it ends at sunset. This is also something that's clearly agreed upon. There's no difference of opinion about that. But there are some things that have some level of ambiguity in the details about how we practice certain things in Islamic law. And sometimes you can have different opinions that Muslim scholars will have. So, for example, when someone is traveling, the question is, do they have to fast part of the day or do they not have to fast part of the day? This is something that Muslim scholars have some different opinions about. Okay. Another example would be how to determine the beginning of Ramadan. Some people use moon sighting, they actually sight the moon. Some people use calculation. There's a difference of opinion about that. So you, the listener, are either one of three people. You are either someone who knows nothing about this topic. You're either new to Islam, or you're not Muslim yet, or you're not Muslim at all, or you've just entered into Islam, you've never fasted in Ramadan. So you may not know anything about the topic, so you can just take everything that I'm presenting and acknowledge that this is an opinion within Islamic scholarship. The second type of person is going to be that you're semi-educated about Islam. So you know a little bit about fasting, you know a little bit about Ramadan, maybe you attended a seminar, maybe you read a book, maybe you grew up in a Muslim family and they taught you some of the rules. So what you're going to do is that your goal should be to learn all the clear-cut rules that you didn't know before. Because sometimes, even if you grew up in a Muslim family, it may have skipped you that this rule existed when it came to fasting or when it came to Ramadan. So what you'll do is you'll fill that in. So for example, I have seen Muslims who have been Muslim for 10 years, And then all of a sudden they're like, I didn't know women who are on their period aren't supposed to fast. And I was fasting the whole time. And they've been Muslim for 10 years or 20 years. And they don't know some of these things. So what they're going to do is they're going to fill in certain gaps that were missing in their education. And sometimes they may actually have learned something that was incorrect and that was actually wrong. So for example, there are some Muslims who are told, you know what, if you have the flu when you're fasting in Ramadan, you just pay some charity and you don't have to make up that fast later. That is completely incorrect, and I'm going to clarify why that is. But I've heard so many Muslims do that. They're like, how much charity do I have to give because I got sick when I was in the month of Ramadan? That's absolutely incorrect. So it's very important. Sometimes some of the things you may have learned may not be accurate, and you should try to get those corrected and filled in. And if you're well educated and you really know, Ramadan, you know all of these rules very well, and you've taken classes and everything, then if I mention something that is different or somewhat different to what you were taught, then you actually increase your knowledge and you learn that there are some other valid scholarly opinions on some details about fasting or some details about zakah, so you can feel happy that at least you learned that there's another opinion within Islamic scholarship, okay? And it's never on the fundamentals, it's usually on the little details, okay? So, here's an example. So, accidentally swallowing water when you're performing your wudu, when you're performing your washing before prayer, it actually breaks your fast. Muslim scholars have differed on this issue. So if you were taught that it doesn't break your fast or that it does break your fast and you only knew one of them, you're going to learn a different opinion maybe today. Okay, so that's just the methodology of how I'm going to present this. Now let me start from the beginning. Okay, Ramadan and fasting. First of all, what is Ramadan? Okay, Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. And because it's a month, it's a month in the Islamic lunar calendar. So we have January, February, March, April, May. This is called the Gregorian calendar. It's based on the solar cycle, 365 days. There's an Islamic calendar, which is a lunar calendar. It has different months. Sha'ban, Ramadan, Shawwal, 12 months. Each month has 29 or 30 days. In the Gregorian calendar, each month has 28 days for February, leap year 29, sometimes 30, sometimes 31. In the lunar calendar, every month has 29 or 30 days. There's 12 months, there's 354 days instead of 365 days. So what ends up happening is Ramadan keeps shifting back about 10 or 11 days every single year if you're following the Gregorian calendar. So right now we're kind of hitting Ramadan in the summer. After a few years, it's going to keep going back, and eventually it's going to become in winter again. And then eventually it's going to shift over several years back into summer again. So it keeps shifting back. So that's because we're trying to map the lunar calendar to the Gregorian solar calendar. Okay, so that's what's happening. So the month of Ramadan is special for Muslims and special in Islam because it is the month in which the Quran was revealed in the beginning to the Prophet Muhammad, we say peace be upon him. So this is what makes it special. And in order to commemorate that, the same way that people commemorate the 4th of July for American independence, they commemorate Cinco de Mayo, they'll commemorate like a Civil War reenactment or something like that because they consider these events to be special. So for Muslims and in Islam, we're taught that we are going to commemorate the month of Ramadan because it's the month in which the Quran was revealed by fasting in that month. So we're going to talk about what fasting is. So fasting is an act of worship. It's almost like prayer. So in Islam, we pray 5 times a day. So when we fast, it's something that we're doing to connect with our Creator, even though there's other benefits, physical benefits, and all of these things. Our primary reason is that we're doing it for God. Right? So this is what fasting is. And fasting, the underlying wisdom behind fasting, is that it's an exercise in self-control. When you're able to resist certain desires and urges that you have, you actually build up your ability of having delayed gratification, of waiting until you want to drink right now, you're very thirsty, but you're not going to drink. You're going to wait a few more hours, until your fast is broken. What does that do for you? It develops self-control and self-discipline. And that helps you become a better Muslim. It helps you become a better servant of God. It helps you to become even a better human being because you're able to control your desires and resist certain temptations that are going to come your way. So that's the wisdom behind fasting, and this is clearly mentioned in the Quran about why we fast. So what is fasting in a nutshell? It is basically to refrain from food, drink, and intercourse during the daytime. The daytime being defined as from dawn until sunset. Okay, so dawn in the early morning, dawn is when if you were going to look out in a horizon and there's no mountains or anything like that, you had a clear view of just, miles and miles of just clear view with no obstructions. Then when you were looking and it's nighttime, when you see the first thread of light start to appear in the horizon when you're looking out, that is considered to be dawn or the break of dawn. And the reason why that happens is when you're looking out, the sun has already set, it's nighttime, and the sun is about to rise. And before the sun rises, when the sun gets towards the horizon, the light from the sun begins to illuminate the horizon. So the moment we see that first initial illumination, this is called dawn. And we have to start our fast right before the time of dawn actually comes in. So that's when we start the fast. And when we end the fast, is we end at sunset. So when the sun goes down below the horizon, some of you have been to the beach, you've seen the sunset. We're on the West Coast, California, this is the beauty of it. When it goes down, we break our fast. We can start eating, drinking, and, having a relationship with our spouse again. So these are the times of fasting. Now, sunset is something that's very easy to determine. All you need to do is you go and look in, on a website or in a newspaper or even the news, or even like on your watch, if you have like one of those smart watches, it'll tell you what sunset time is. Everyone, Muslim and non-Muslim, they're concerned or they care about sunset time because it's like a marker for what's going to happen and how you live your life and everything. But when it comes to the time of dawn, there's a little bit more nuance involved. So what a Muslim is supposed to do is there's two options you have. One of them is you go to your local mosque and they're going to give you a calendar that's printed out. If you're kind of like more on the old school side, you go and get a physical printed out calendar and they're going to give you the times. And those times have been calculated for you. And if that's the mosque that you trust, the mosque that you frequent, then you're going to just go ahead and grab one of those schedules and just follow the times. You eat in the morning, you wake up very early morning, 4 a.m. or something like that. You start eating until that time comes in on that day. And every day it's going to be changing. And you eat until that time and you stop eating right before that time comes in. And then your fast has started. And then it'll tell you the sunset times as well. And as soon as sunset is done, you can eat again. Or you could follow one of these apps. If you have an app or you go on a website, you can go and you can look and say, what is the time for Fajr prayer or the morning prayer? So basically the time that Fajr prayer comes in is the exact same time that fasting begins. So you just look at the time for Fajr prayer and you say, okay, if Fajr prayer starts at 4:37 a.m., I can eat until 4:30, 4:33, 4:34, stop, go get ready for prayer, and then I can do my prayer. What you're going to find though is in those apps, if you go to the settings section, there are different settings. And the settings vary from 12 degrees, 15 degrees, 17 degrees, 18 degrees. So you're going to find all these degrees. And if you pick a random degree number, all of a sudden your time that said 4:37, it jumps down to 4:09. You're like, well, wait a minute. I want to go back to the other setting. Give me the other setting. And then accidentally, if you push 12 degrees, all of a sudden your 4:37 time will jump to like 5:15. You're like, hey, that's pretty good. That sounds nice. I can eat for another half an hour. So what you have to understand is that these degrees that exist on that app or in that website, what it is, it's a way that you don't have to go outside every day and you have to kind of look in the horizon because there's mountains all over California anyways. Even if you had a clear view of the horizon, you don't have to go out there and wait. You're like, drinking your water. You're like, does that look like light? I don't know if it looks like light. And then when you see the light, you're like, oh man, I didn't finish my water. So instead of you having to do that every single time, there is calculations that have been used to see how many degrees is the sun below the horizon. And based upon the degrees below the horizon, we can estimate, not 100% certain, but we can estimate approximately what time dawn might be. And in different regions and in different elevations, there are different degrees that are used. So it is not consistent. This is not scientifically deterministic depending on where you are. So there's certain scholarly bodies that have issued a verdict that says Muslims in North America, particularly Muslims in America, they should use the 15-degree calculation. So when you're starting your prayer, you go to the settings menu, you choose 15 degrees if you see the degrees. If not, you choose North America. It's either going to say North America, it's going to say Fiqh Council of North America, or it's going to say ISNA. So that's the setting that you pick in order to get the timings that you need. Or you could just pick up your local schedule, right? So if you change to 18 or you change to France time, France is like 12 degrees. But that's because it's France. So we're not in France. So don't use France's time to fast when you're in California. As tempting as it is, because you get to eat an extra half an hour, if you were to walk outside, you would see light and that dawn has already come. So that works in France. It doesn't work in California or wherever you're watching this video from. You have to figure out what degree calculation works in your area. Okay? So generally for America, you can use 15 degrees. For Canada, there's a different degrees because they're in the northern latitudes. So it's very different. Europe is different. Other places are different. So it is not consistent across the board. So that is the beginning of fast. And the end of fast is pretty clear-cut in terms of sunset. That is deterministic. It's very easy to figure that part out. So like I said, we fast in Ramadan because the Quran was revealed in Ramadan. And we fast every single day of Ramadan. So what's going to happen is you're going to wake up early in the morning. You're going to eat and drink a little bit. You generally don't want to skip that. You want to drink for sure. I don't recommend you drink soda. I don't recommend you drink coffee because it's diuretic. It's going to dehydrate you unless you need maybe a little bit or something like that. And then drink a lot of water. Eat something that's healthy for you, that's going to have slow release energy. And you refrain from food, drink, and intercourse for the rest of the day until sunset. Okay? And then you break your fast right after that. So that's fasting in a nutshell. Now, who needs to fast in the month of Ramadan? Who is required? First of all, Muslims are required to fast in Ramadan with some exceptions. So who is exempted? Which Muslims do not have to fast in Ramadan? The first one is that people have to be mature. So children are not obligated to fast in Ramadan. So once they reach the age of maturity, they're obligated to fast. So what is that age? Well, let's put it this way. What should parents do with their own kids? So when children reach the age of 7, Muslim parents have a responsibility to teach them to start fasting a little bit. And if they get hungry or something, they can break their fast. They can do half day of fasting. You explain to them what fasting is. Age 7, age 8, age 9, they're kind of getting the hang of it. They're trying a few fasts here and there. By the time they reach age 10, it's your responsibility as a Muslim parent to make sure that your children are fasting. Same thing with prayer. You start them at the age of 7. You get them used to try and do a few prayers here, a few prayers there, get the motions down, understand the meaning. By the time they reach the age of 10, they have to be praying all 5 prayers. This is a responsibility on parents to make sure that their kids are taught this. The same thing applies for fasting. Okay? So they have to be mature. So someone who's not mature, they've not reached the age of maturity yet, they are not required to fast. So if your 9-year-old is like, look, I'm really thirsty, and you're like, you need to fast. They don't. If it's really, really tough for them, they have not reached that age yet, it's okay. Let them break once in a while. It's okay. Right? Second is sanity. Sanity meaning there's no mental impairment or handicap. So certain people, if they're not able to function, they're not required to fast as well. They're almost like children, so you don't have to obligate them to do so. But if they want to try that, they can try that. The third is to be free from illness. So meaning that if someone gets sick, you do not have to fast in Ramadan if you're sick. So if you get the flu, If you are, hospitalized, you're having a surgery, something is needed, you don't have to fast. You skip your fast, but you have to make up that fast later on. So when Ramadan is over, you make it up. So if you have the flu is going to last maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, right? After you're done, you finish the rest of Ramadan fasting, and then when Ramadan is over, you're going to make that fast up later on, after Ramadan is over. As soon as you possibly can, 1 month later, 2 months later, whatever it may be. But it's a requirement that you still have to make it up. So there's different types of illness, right? Sometimes one person's illness is different from another person's illness. Some people, they get a little bit of headache. They're like, I can't fast anymore. I have to break. I can't function at work or something like that. Fasting is challenging. It's not super easy, but it's not supposed to be super difficult either. So let's put it this way. If you're getting so sick to the point where you cannot even function at work, you cannot even get your work done, right? Then you may have a legitimate excuse to break your fast. But if you got a little cough, or you got a little runny nose, or you got a little headache, which happens in the beginning for most people, this doesn't mean that you're so sick that you need to break your fast. You're like, my head is hurting a little bit on this side. Like you got a paper cut and you're like, you're going to break your fast. So don't be too easy on yourself and don't be too hard on yourself. Okay, so really Islam is about that balance. And when you break your fast because you're sick, you just need to make that fast up later on. Nothing else about that. The next is free from chronic inability. So there's a difference between an illness and an illness that is chronic, it's long-lasting. So for example, if somebody has diabetes, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to fast. If somebody is very, very old in age and their body just can't take it, or they have some other type of illness and they're not likely going to recover from that illness, then they don't need to fast, but they're not going to be able to make it up either because they're not able to fast throughout the entire year, and this condition is not likely to improve. So what do? They don't have to fast, and because they don't have to make up their fast, what they're going to do is they're going to feed one poor person for every single day of fasting that they missed. All right? So every day fasting that they missed, they're going to feed a poor person for that. And this is mentioned in the Quran. So how do you actually do that? You have two options. Either one, you go and find someone, who is in need of food and you give them food. Some people find that a little bit more challenging to figure that out. So what we do in most mosques, there'll be a box. And that box will be labeled fidya. The box is labeled like this is the compensation for if you need to feed that person, you put however much money you need in this box, and we will take the responsibility for you of finding the poor people, and we will get the food to them. So what you do is they'll list an amount. So they'll put like $10 or $15 depending on the price of food for that year and everything. So you just calculate how many days did you miss. Was Ramadan 29 days? Was it 30 days? You put the money in that box and they'll go ahead and handle it for you if you don't handle it yourself. Okay, so that is chronic illness versus an illness that you're likely going to recover from so you can make up your fasts later on in the year at some point. And the second last point is not traveling. So when you're traveling in the month of Ramadan, traveling can be difficult for people. When they're going on a journey, you drive somewhere very, very far, or you jump on a plane and you go somewhere else, you are not required to fast, but you're allowed to fast. So if traveling is going to be very easy for you, you should fast. Especially, if you're traveling from the west coast to east somewhere, you're going forward in time, right? So your fast is actually going to get shorter. So you probably might want to fast. But if you're going the opposite way, it may be very long. Maybe you're one of those people who gets dehydrated in the airplane. Maybe, you're going to be somewhere in a rural area or whatever. You're not required to fast if you're traveling. If it's easy, you should. If it's very difficult, you shouldn't. But what you do is you make up for every day of fasting that you skipped because you were traveling. Okay? So I'm going to take questions at the end, inshallah. Yeah, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. So that's in a nutshell. Okay? Just write it down, please, so you don't forget. And the last one is that people are not in a period of menstruation or lokia. So women who are in a period of menstruation or lokia after childbirth, they are not supposed to be fasting. And this is a mercy from God, that, because it's very difficult, blood is coming out of their body, it's, a lot of hormones and everything. It's better for them and healthier for them to not be fasting, so it's not a requirement. They're not supposed to fast during this time. So anyone who doesn't fall into any one of these categories, they're supposed to be fasting in the month of Ramadan every single day in Ramadan. Okay? So determining the month of Ramadan, I kind of hinted at this. It's very important to figure out when Ramadan starts. Ramadan is a month in the lunar calendar. The lunar calendar, like I said, it's based on, the sighting of the moon. So the month begins when you sight the first crescent, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. In the middle of the month, there's a full moon. And then it keeps on going, and the moon gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the crescent disappears. And when the next crescent begins, when you see the little tiny crescent moon again, that means the next month has started and the previous month has ended. So basically the way that it used to be was you check for the new moon crescent on the 29th day of Sha'ban. Sha'ban is the month in which we're in right now, 8th month in the lunar calendar. Ramadan is the 9th month. So when you go and you check for the new moon, the moment you see it, that means that Ramadan has begun. And you check after sunset in the sky to see if there's a new moon. Now, that will determine when Ramadan starts. And then you go and you check on the 29th day of Ramadan, after sunset, to see if you see the new moon for the following month of Shawwal. If you see it, the month is over, Ramadan is done. If you don't see it, it's going to be seen the next day. Because every single month in the lunar calendar has how many days? 29 or 30. There's no other option. So if you don't see it on the 29th, the next day is going to be, it's going to be 30-day month, and the following day is going to be the next month. Okay? So there needs to be a system to determine how we're going to find that moon. So some people, they will go and they will check in their own locality and they'll see, hey, can I see the moon? Now what if you can't see the moon in your area, but someone in another state can see the moon? So if they can see the moon in another state and you're nearby, you should be fasting because they told you that they saw the moon. So you go ahead and do that. So this is not determined by the birth of the moon. There's a difference between the birth of the moon, it's a scientific term, right? The birth of the moon versus the ability to actually sight the moon. So some people they'll come up with the idea of using calculations, astronomical calculations, to determine when the visibility of the moon is possible in any place in the world. And if we can determine that, then we can actually figure out exactly when Ramadan is going to start way in advance. And other people, they say, no, we shouldn't use that method. We should actually make sure that, because these calculations are not 100% accurate. It's not scientifically deterministic. So therefore, we should make sure that somebody is actually sighting the moon somewhere, and then we're going to go ahead and believe the people or the group of people who actually saw it, if they're credible, reports of sighting. That's why you'll find some Muslim communities starting Ramadan and ending Ramadan on different dates. The reason is because some of them will accept the idea of using this calculation even though it's not 100% accurate, and others will say no, because it's not 100% accurate, we should not use that calculation, and instead we should just go with actual sightings. And of course sightings have their own problem because people have they have different eyes. Sometimes people see things that are not always there, right? So that becomes a problem in and of itself. So whose word do you take and all of that? There's a little bit of ambiguity there, a little bit of nuance that's required there. So that's how we determine the month of Ramadan. In terms of the requirements for fasting in and of themselves, right? First thing is you need to have the intention to fast. What the intention means, it just means that in your heart you know why you're fasting. So if you wake up in the morning and you go, you know what? I'm really not hungry. In fact, I'm just going to skip breakfast. And you say, you know what? It'll be, and then by the time you get to lunch, you're like, I haven't eaten anything. This is actually good for my health. I ate too much last night anyways. Let me just, for my own health and my diet, I'm just going to not eat anything. And then 4 o'clock comes around and you're like, you know what? I guess I should just fast. Maybe God will reward me too. You didn't have the intention throughout the day of fasting. You were doing it for dieting reasons, right? So if you don't have the intention, doesn't count because you weren't doing it for Islamic reasons. You're doing it for like dieting reasons. So that's all the intention means. That means when you wake up in the morning or at night before you go to sleep, you have the intention that, hey, I'm going to fast because it's Ramadan. That's it. You don't need to say it. You don't need to verbalize it. You don't need to write it down or anything like that. It's just there it's present in your mind. That suffices. The best thing is just make the intention the whole month of Ramadan, I'm going to fast. Unless your intention changes, you go into some workout routine or something like that, that suffices for you to fast the entire month of Ramadan. Okay? You can skip that point prior to midday. It's an advanced point, so I'll take questions if you need to later on. Then once you start your fasting, no eating, no drinking, anything. No water, no drop, don't drink anything at all, don't eat anything at all. You don't have any intercourse at all, and if you vomit intentionally, it will actually break your fast as well. But if you vomit accidentally, it doesn't break your fast. So if you induce vomit, then it's going to break your fast as well. So that's pretty rare, but don't do that, okay? So pretty simple. What does not break your fast? That some people may think that it does break your fast. Maybe let's look at some of those things. Number one, forgetfully eating or drinking. So if you forget, you're in the middle of the day, you're so used to it, somebody goes, hey, Muhammad, you want some French fries? You're like, oh, French fries, sure, man. I love French fries. And you're eating, and you eat like 4 fries, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm supposed to be fasting. Oh no, what do I do? What do? Is you immediately spit the rest of the French fry that's in your mouth out. Don't induce any vomit, because you no need to do that. And you just stop, and this is not going to break your fast. Okay? The Prophet, peace be upon him, he taught us that, if somebody has forgotten, just consider this a gift from God. Maybe you needed that, Don't try to intentionally make yourself forget. I know some people are like, yeah, I need that gift. I'm just going to forget that I'm fasting. If you forget, you eat whatever it is, the moment you remember, stop and continue your fast. It's not going to break your fast, okay? Second thing is if you mistakenly eat or drink at the wrong time. So in the morning, you're eating, drinking, you're not looking at your clock, and you think it's right, and you eat a little bit, and then a few minutes go by, and then you realize someone tells you, oh, that clock is broken, by the way. It's like 5 minutes, 5 minutes behind, and you're like, oh no, what do I do? There's difference of opinion on this among scholars, but it would be okay, according to one opinion, that this is not going to break your fast either, and you continue it. You continue fasting. The third thing is tasting food without swallowing it. Okay? Now, this is with some need. Tasting food does not break your fast. If you swallow food, then you've eaten. But tasting is different. Now, why in the world would you taste food? This is not because you're so hungry and you're like, watching the cooking show, it's just not working for me. I need something more. I'm just going to start tasting different foods, but I'm going to keep spitting it out every time. No, you should have a good reason. So if you are a chef and you work in a restaurant and you need to taste your pasta sauce or whatever it is, otherwise you're going to get fired, you can taste it with the tip of your tongue and then spit it out immediately because you're not swallowing it, right? So you can do it for a good reason. Okay? If you have a baby, you need to chew the baby's food or something, you take it out. As long as you don't swallow it, it's not going to break your fast, technically, and you should have a reason for doing that, okay? Chewing food without swallowing it. So same thing. If you have children, you need to chew the food for them for some reason, you can go ahead and do that as well, as long as you don't swallow anything. Eye drops are not going to break your fast because they don't go actually all the way down. Even though you may feel something a little bit in your mouth, if you put eye drops, they generally don't have a direct connection. So unless somehow the substance goes in and all of a sudden you feel it in your throat and you swallow it down, it's different. Eardrops, not going to break your fast. Nose drops, not going to break your fast unless you inhale all the way and then it comes in your throat, then you taste something and then you swallow it. You're like, oh, well, that was refreshing. So that is not going to break your fast because it's non-nutritive and it's not really going down into that canal generally. Medicinal injections. Okay, so if you get injections, you get a vaccine or something like that, it's non-nutritive, it's not going to break your fast. Some scholars have differed and said that anything going in could potentially break your fast. Patches, nicotine patch because you need it, is not going to break your fast. Asthma inhalers is something that Muslim scholars have really differed about. But there are scholars who have said it's kind of like a 50-50 split almost. So Muslim scholars have said because it doesn't go all the way down into your stomach and it just goes into your lungs, you could use the inhaler, asthma inhaler as well, because it's non-nutritive, it's not going to break your fast. But again, like I said, there are other scholars who make a good argument as well that this could be considered breaking your fast because there is a substance that's going into your body, so you may want to be careful on that one. Brushing your teeth technically does not break your fast unless you swallow some water, unless you swallow toothpaste, right? Or something like that. But if you're very careful, then brushing your teeth is not going to break your fast. Try not to brush all the way back of your tongue and all of that stuff. Giving blood will not break your fast. But you shouldn't give blood unless if it's going to weaken you. So if you give blood and then all of a sudden you get so weak and then like for the next 6 hours you're just like lying in bed and you're like, I'm not getting up until fast breaking time, then don't give blood if you can avoid it, right? Because otherwise you kind of mess up your whole point of fasting. You're not supposed to just lie down all day long. So it doesn't break your fast if you give blood though. Smelling perfume doesn't break your fast either. Now the reason why I'm even mentioning this, why would someone even care about this? Because if you inhale incense, it's like inhaling smoke. If you're smoking a cigarette, if the smoke comes inside your body, that can break your fast. That will break your fast. So you want to make sure you don't heavily inhale a ton of incense intentionally, and you want to make sure you're not smoking because that's going to break your fast as well. Okay? And rinsing your mouth with water. As long as you don't swallow anything, it's not going to break your fast. I know some people are going to say, well, technically when you rinse your mouth with water, even if you spit it out, the leftover water is going to be absorbed by your tongue and under your tongue and get into your body. Well, that's known. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, he used to perform his ablution, his wudu, before prayer, washing up for prayer, and he used to rinse his mouth, and he told the Muslims to rinse their mouth. So this is not considered to be eating or drinking, even though something gets absorbed in your mouth or something like that. So rinsing your mouth with water is fine. It doesn't break your fast. Taking a bath just to cool down, it's okay. If you're getting really hot and you're fasting, take a bath. You can cool down. It's not a problem. Going swimming, as long as you don't swallow any water, it's allowed as well. It's not going to break your fast. Okay? Fasting part of the day, I'm going to skip this one because it's an advanced topic. What is recommended? What's recommended when you're fasting is that you wake up early and you have that early morning meal that I was telling you. Okay, that's called suhoor. Some people call sehri. Suhoor basically means you wake up early and you have that meal. That's not only recommended for health reasons, but it was strongly emphasized by the Prophet, peace be upon him. So it's considered to be a recommended practice in Islam that you should be doing, and you should try not to skip that at all. The second thing that's recommended is as soon as the fast is over, you break immediately. So what if you're like fasting the whole day and you're like, I'm okay, I could go for another hour, I can go for another 2 hours, I'm okay. It doesn't matter if you're okay. You are fasting because God prescribed fasting for you. And you should follow the fasting rules the way that God prescribed it. So you stop eating when He tells you to stop eating, and you start eating when He tells you to start eating. So as soon as the sun sets, 1 or 2 minutes, whatever it is, make sure you have something with you and you break your fast. If you're stuck in traffic, you're on your way back from school, back from work, whatever it may be, make sure you have something with you so you can break your fast with water or with a date or something like that. So keep something with you if you're going to be stuck in traffic or you won't have ability or something like that, because you want to make sure not to delay this principle of breaking your fast. You should break your fast with dates, an odd number of dates, 1, 3, 5, 7. Dates are something that the Prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him, highly emphasized. He used to break with dates always. Any type of date is fine. It doesn't matter which one. And if you don't have dates, then with water, taking an odd number of sips of water, okay, which is going to hydrate you. So dates are actually a very healthy food. They have a certain type of natural sugar. It's going to give your body the ability to rehydrate yourself. So it's very, very healthy for you. And if you can't, obviously water is very healthy for you. You've been going the whole day without water. So this is really emphasized. You should not overlook this as well. And when you break your fast, there is a certain supplication or dua, a prayer that you make when you're breaking that fast. It's ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. That's Arabic, which means the thirst is gone, the veins are moist, and the reward is affirmed if God wills. Okay, so you can find that in many books. I think in our calendar of fasting, we print it on there for you, so you can read it. You can read it in Arabic, you can read it in English, you can read it in any language. It doesn't matter, as long as your intention is there. It's fine. Um, Making up fast. So like I said, if you're sick or you're traveling and you missed one of those fasts, you have to make up that fast at your earliest convenience. So you don't have to make it up exactly the day after Ramadan, but you do have to make it up eventually, and you should not delay a long time. Some people, they will delay all the way till next Ramadan. I get people messaging me today. They're like, you know what? I have 10 fasts to make up, and we don't have 10 days left to Ramadan. What do I do? So, well, I'll tell you what you should have done. You shouldn't have waited until the next Ramadan comes. You should have handled that earlier. And if you were really slick, you would have done it in the winter when the days are the shortest. That would have solved your issues for you. But you shouldn't delay that long. So just, try to make it up as soon as you possibly can when you need to make up fast. Preferably, try to make them up in order, meaning try to make them up back to back. If you miss 7 in a row because you had the flu, try to make up 7. But if you can't, even if you make them up scattered, it still counts. You've still made them up. If you break your fast in the month of Ramadan intentionally with no excuse, you're just sitting there and you're like, you know what? Man, I'm sick and tired of this. I want this burger. Forget fasting. I'm just going to eat this burger. And you eat the burger. What you've done is you violated, as a Muslim, you violated the sanctity and the honor of the month of Ramadan. And because you've done that, there is a penalty for that. And that penalty is very severe. That is that you have to fast 60 days in a row after Ramadan is over, and you have to make up the fast that you had broken. This is a very strict penalty because it's not a small thing for a Muslim to be just breaking the rules of Ramadan, right? So take this very, very seriously. Some scholars have said this is only when intercourse happens, but there's a difference on this. So that's a serious thing. So don't, if you just feel like, you know what, I just don't want to fast today. I just don't feel like it. Well, you're Muslim. Try your best to just do it anyways. Just suck it up and do it. All right. Taraweeh prayer and i'tikaf. So in Ramadan, after the night prayer, after the 5th prayer of the day, which is Isha prayer, the night prayer like we're going to have right now in a few minutes, there is another additional prayer called Taraweeh. And Taraweeh is a prayer which is highly recommended, and you only pray it in Ramadan. You don't pray Taraweeh prayer outside of Ramadan. So you can pray Taraweeh prayer either at home or you could pray in the mosque. So some people, they're like, well, I can't make it to the mosque and I have work and I have this and the imam is too slow. He reads the Quran so slowly. It takes me an hour and a half and I have work the next day. You can pray at home, your Taraweeh prayer. It's perfectly fine. Some people say, I have kids and this mosque that I go to, they complain that my kids are too loud or something like that, or my kids are sleeping. You can pray at home. It's perfectly fine. So you're allowed to pray Taraweeh at home. But if you can make it to the mosque, it's also very nice. You get to meet all the other Muslims and it's a great environment. What Taraweeh prayer is, it's 8 units of prayer or 20 units of prayer. Either one. You could even do 36 units of prayer, different numbers. You pray these units of prayer that are extra after Isha, after the last prayer of the day, and you try to get as much recitation of the Quran as you possibly can get in. Okay, so that is Taraweeh prayer. In the last 10 nights of Ramadan, there's something called Laylatul Qadr, which means the night of power. This night is the night in which the Quran was actually revealed. And we don't know exactly which one it is. It could be any one of the last 10 nights, last 10 odd nights, something like that. God kept it a secret so that you work really hard every single day, during that time and pray a little extra. So you're supposed to pray a little extra. You're supposed to make a little extra supplications, a little extra charity, a little extra everything. And that night is considered to have the value of 1,000 months. So it's like an emphasis. If you pray on that night extra, you get the value added bonus of 1,000 months. Even though that night is not 100% told to you. So you work hard the last 10 nights, specifically the last 10 odd nights. Okay? And then the last 10 odd nights, technically the 21st starts on the night of the 20th day. So if you're like, well, when does that start? The 20th day of Ramadan, the night time, the next day of Ramadan begins after sunset. So that's the way the calendar is. The Jewish calendar is the same way. So, our days, the next day starts at midnight. In the Islamic calendar, in the Muslim calendar, the next day starts at sunset. So the day is already started technically. So today, it's in your watch, it'll say it's the 26th. Today, it's already after sunset. So we've already started Saturday. So it is the 27th right now, according to the Islamic conception of time. Okay? There's something else called seclusion or i'tikaf inside the mosque. So it is recommended, slightly recommended if you're able to, is to spend the last 10 nights of Ramadan staying inside the mosque and not leaving at all. Now, most people are not able to do this, but if you're able to take time off of work, if you have the ability, this is something that some mosques provide the service for. They have showers for you and everything. You stay inside the mosque for the entire 10 days. And you don't leave unless there's some absolute necessity, like, the shower is broken, you need to go shower somewhere else, or you need to go to the bathroom, or no one is bringing you food. Everyone forgot to bring you food. You just go quickly, grab some food, come right back. You just stay inside the mosque for 10 days, sleeping, and 10 nights as well. So I'll take questions at the end, inshallah. You can make sure to write them down so you don't forget. Then you have Sadaqatul Fitr, sometimes known as Zakatul Fitr or Fitra. What this is this is a charity that you pay at the end of the month of Ramadan. So when Ramadan ends, the day after Ramadan is known as the day of Eid. And Eid means a festival, like a festival of celebration. So it's a day of celebrating. But there are poor people who cannot celebrate the way that you and I can celebrate. They don't have the ability to buy the new clothes and fancy clothes that we have. They don't have the ability to have a nice meal or have a party or sponsor people the way that we can do. So what we do is, if you have the ability to do so, you pay something known as fitra or sadaqatul fitr, and that money gets distributed to people specifically for the day of Eid so that they can celebrate on that day too. They don't have to work, they don't have to beg, they will be able to buy some clothes, they'll be able to buy some food, and they'll be able to enjoy that day as well. A man is required to pay for himself and pay for his own children, and a woman is required to pay for herself as well. All right? The distribution of this must be given to people who are needy. This is not a donation to the mosque or something like that. When you're giving this money, you have to put it specifically in a box in your local mosque that is marked, it's earmarked for this specific usage. And it's better to pay early. Because if you're gonna distribute it yourself, that's fine. But it's better to pay early, because what happens is a lot of people, they'll just pay this on the morning of the day of Eid. Right when Ramadan ends, the next morning, they'll go walk for the prayer and they'll give this. How are the people supposed to distribute this and find the people who are legitimate to give it to them? So it requires a few days to get this organized. My advice is try and give it at least 10 days before Ramadan ends, just to make it easy for the people who are organizing and logistics, and they're going to go and get the people who are in need and give it to them. Pay it at least 10 days, 15 days in advance. You could pay it any time in Ramadan. So as soon as they announce in Ramadan, hey, if you qualify for this, if you have a little bit of money, put it in the box, go ahead and do that, so that people can actually benefit from that, and it'll get to them the way that it needs to get to them. Okay? So the day of Eid is the day of the festival. That's the day, literally the day after Ramadan is over, it's the day of Eid. It's known as the festival of breaking the fast. You fasted the whole month of Ramadan, now your fast is over, you're not fasting anymore. So it's the day after Ramadan, and the communities get together, all the mosques come together, and they're supposed to come together and pray in one big area. So usually we pray inside the mosque, but here you're supposed to get together and get we usually get like the Angel Stadium, or we get like some big, a Mile Square Park or something like that, and get all the people together, and we pray together that special Eid prayer that's there. And there's a prayer that happens in the morning around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that. Okay? So that is fasting. Okay? In terms of zakah, I can cover this in probably 3 minutes, and then we'll take questions, and we'll break for Isha. We're good? I have 3 more minutes? Yeah? I'm going to take 4 minutes then, since you said up to me. All right, so 4 minutes. So what is zakah? Zakah is a pillar of Islam. Zakah is another act of worship. It's something that's very, very important to do as well, and it's an obligation. So what zakah is, it's a type of charity that you have to give. So the way it works is this. If you have enough money that is equivalent to 3 ounces of gold or more. You go and check the ounces of gold. I checked last year, it was 39.60. Maybe it's about, I would say about $4,000, somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000. Gold fluctuates all the time, right? So if you have about $3,000 to $5,000, depending on 3 ounces of gold, you have to pay zakah. And what zakah means is you're going to give 2.5% on all your productive wealth that you have saved up to the poor. So what does that mean? If you have $10,000 in your bank account, is it more than 3 ounces of gold? Yes. So you're going to pay 2.5% of the 10,000 and you're going to give it to charity. This is known as zakah. This is not your regular charity. Regular charity is like, when you feel like, hey, I should give some charity, you give some charity. This is required charity. This is the bare minimum threshold. When you give this, you're not a charitable person. Even if you have $1 million and you pay 2.5%, you're not a charitable person. You shouldn't feel good about yourself, like I'm doing something good. You've not given any charity. You've just fulfilled the absolute minimum obligation that Islam tells you you have to do. So this is what zakah is, and obviously it's to help people who are in need, it's to redistribute wealth in society, and it's to make sure that you yourself, when you're saving up, you're not just hoarding, but you're trying to invest your wealth as well, so that it recirculates within that society of yours. So let's take a quick example. Example is, you have $2,000 worth of furniture in your home. You calculate all of it. Is that productive wealth? Like, is it invested somehow where it's going to be increasing in value and then your intention is you're going to sell your furniture? No. So it counts as personal use. You do not count this as the amount of wealth that you have to pay zakah on. The vehicles that you own, let's say you own 2 cars. They have gone down in value and they're each worth $12,000. You got a Honda and a Toyota, let's say, for example. That's $24,000. Those vehicles, what are you doing with them? Right? You're using them for your personal use. You didn't buy them so that they could potentially increase in value. Okay? So what are you going to do? You're not going to count this as your zakah. This is personal property. You do not have to pay any 2.5% on this amount of money at all. The next one, you own electronics. You got your cell phone, your super smartphone, you got a computer, you got a TV, you got this, that, $5,500 sitting in your house of personal electronics. Are these going up in value? Did you buy them as an investment? Are they liable to increase? No. They're just going to keep decreasing over time, and you're using them for your own personal use. You do not count them. You do not have to pay zakah on them. You have cash sitting inside your home, under your bed. You have cash in your pocket. You keep extra emergency $300 in your car. I don't know if you do or not, but let's just say you do, right? You calculate all the cash that you have. This is considered to be productive wealth. Is your cash going up? No, it's not going up. But if you wanted it to, you could have invested that cash at any time and it could have potentially increased in value. So cash is considered to be potentially productive. Therefore, you have to pay zakah on it. So let's say you had $2,000 sitting under your bed, in your pocket, and in your car. You calculate all of it. You have to pay 2.5% of that $2,000 when you add up everything. Then you go in your checking account. Your checking account has $2,000. Is it productive wealth? Yeah, it's just like cash. It's money. It belongs to you. So you add that too. So you got 2,000 and 2,000. So far you have $4,000. Are you over the threshold? Yes, you are. So you pay 2.5% on that. But what if you have more wealth? You have 100 shares of Tesla sitting in your E-Trade stock account, and it's valued at $10,000. Is it productive wealth? Can you buy it? Can you sell it? Is it going up in value? Yes, you can. So you're going to pay 2.5% on that. You've got 100 shares of Amana X, Amana Mutual Funds in your Roth IRA account, and you're like, I'm going to use it when I retire. But you could take that out and you could use it in cases of emergencies. You can do all sorts of things with it. Is it productive wealth? Yes, it is. $6,000, you're going to pay 2.5% on that as well. You have cryptocurrency in your Bitcoin wallet valued at $5,000. You bought Bitcoin hoping it was going to go up, and then you realize that after I gave the presentation 1 year ago, you should have thought, again, because I warned you. I said, even though it's allowed and halal, you should be very careful before you invest in cryptocurrency. But that's okay. You still have $5,000 in your Bitcoin wallet. Is it productive wealth? It's like money. It's money. So you have to pay 2.5% on that as well. So what do? You calculate all of these and you see what is your zakah going to be. So you exclude this, exclude this, exclude this, exclude this, exclude this. No, sorry, you include this and your cash. So how much money do we have? 2,000 and 2,000, 4,000 plus 10,000, 14,000 plus 6,000, 20,000 plus 5,000, 25,000. As you can see, I already picked the easy number for you. So what is 2.5% of $25,000? $2.5% of $25,000. Yeah. Okay, what is 1% of $25,000? Okay, I'm going to let you calculate it when we come back after prayer, inshallah. Okay, so this is my second last slide. Last slide is about debt. So basically, if you have debts or loans that are due, I'm going to teach you after prayer on how you can actually deduct those loans that you may have from your zakah, and then we're going to have open Q&A session, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll break here, and we're going to...
I know math was not a prerequisite for tonight, as far as, but may Allah bless you all. Thank you so much, Sheikh Musfa. As you mentioned, we're going to pray now in about 5 minutes, so we're going to give the adhan momentarily. We're going to come back for questions. So again, if you have questions, come back. If you don't and you need to get home, of course, you're most welcome to go home. We're not going to hold you here, right? But very quickly, one announcement, or two announcements. One, we have the Ramadan gift boxes outside still. We're going to be closing shop very quickly, so if you are interested, I would purchase them now. Secondly, we have something very interesting coming up during Ramadan. It's called Fast with the Muslim. That is, as you guys remember, last year we initiated this, and this is where we invite non-Muslims to fast one day of Ramadan with us. The date we have is Sunday, May 19th. What we do is we encourage them to fast one day, and then we have iftar here for them. So if you have non-Muslim family members, co-workers, friends, encourage them to fast one day with us. Even if they don't fast, it's okay. Let them come and enjoy with us as far as the iftar and the dinner. These flyers you can find outside. Last year we basically we had a lot of people that signed up. Unfortunately, we couldn't take everyone because we hit the capacity and we had like a waiting list, right? 100 people or something like that. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, RSVP as soon as possible. All those details are on this flyer, which is outside in those shelves, inshallah. So we'll make our way for Isha and then we'll come back momentarily. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This also is being live streamed for those of you that, if you have anyone that was gonna come but they didn't get a chance to, you can find this on our YouTube page, IIOC TV. You can go to it right now. It's streaming. Again, IIOC TV, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله